Welcome to the WIPS podcast, inspiring and empowering women to take the stage and up their game in the public speaking arena. My name is Chantal Bossé from Shabas, Leaders for Your Presentation, Public Speaking, and AV Needs. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. My guest today is Janice Fingler, and she's from Vancouver in Canada. Welcome, Janice.
Hello, Chantal.
I'm glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, too.
It will be nice. And I know you a little bit. We've had the chance to be at a conference at the same time, but I want to make sure the listeners get to know you a little bit more. So if you want to share with us, what's your work or business?
Well, I actually come from a background of decades on the ground. So although my feet are on the ground here, my work has been on the ground as an exploration geologist and a project manager.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was all over the world, but right now I'm coaching project leaders, and I also have a process called Centura Pro, and it's really helping leaders build their capacity to notice, assess, and communicate all the changing risk landscape that happens on their projects, so they can make better.
So it's still aimed at the people in the geology field, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's still in the mineral exploration realm, but the explorer mindset and approach could be useful to other industries as well.
Oh, I agree. You're right. Sometimes it applies to more than one industry. I would be curious, how would you define yourself? Would you say you're more shy or outspoken?
Well, it kind of depends. If I was going to look historically, I was originally pretty shy about public speaking.
Okay.
But, and over time, I found, though, that I always had this below the surface. I wanted to be outspoken, and I had something to say a lot of the times, right? But it wouldn't come out.
Okay.
It's almost like you're so frustrated. There's this powder keg building. So I wanted to be outspoken, but when it did pop out, the problem was it would be almost like Old Faithful, a geyser that would go boom, and I'd be too forceful. But so
okay.
It was like the tap was either full on or off. I didn't have anything in between.
Well, I think it takes practice. And the funny thing is, with the previous guest I had, I realized many women are just a good mix of, right in between. They started off pretty shy and now they seem to be outspoken. So I guess we're probably changing the way we approach public speaking or just speaking up in a meeting as we grow older. It's probably the age thing coming in.
Yeah, yes, we become fearless in the end, yes.
Or just that we don't care anymore what people think. And tell me, when was the first time you were asked to speak in public?
Well, there's one that's pretty embedded in my mind. I remember in grade 5, that was probably one of the peak of my shyness.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure my parents and my teacher were in cahoots with this because I became the person who was in charge of the narration of the whole biblical Christmas story at the Christmas concert.
Oh, wow. That was a big step.
It would. For someone who's like, oh, my God, I never said boo. Now, the crazy thing was it was kind of scary because, I was not only doing the narrating of the story, but I was also in charge of signaling all the movements of the curtain and the choir and the people. I had full stage control. And so that was like jumping into the fire, right?
I guess so. But how did you find it finally? Because, you had a lot on your plate to start with.
Yeah, well, you know what? I messed up fairly early, and I think I cued the curtain at the wrong time, and then everything went way out of whack. We had the curtain would open at the wrong time when people were switching, and shepherds were fighting with the wise men,
Okay.
but the crowd thought it was hilarious. They thought it was so funny.
Well, you were probably in panic mode, but if the crowd enjoyed it, having a good laugh sometimes it can help. You gave it a nice twist.
I was petrified and embarrassed, and I was just a stoic, reading everything forward, like in the chaos that I had caused. So,
And I would qualify that as a kind of bad or challenging experience, but would you have any more when you got into the job, in your job, did you have any other challenging experiences with public?
for sure. I at a workshop, I was supposed to deliver this presentation, and the way I structured it was totally in the wrong order. I hadn't done a lot of presentations.
Okay.
And I started all backwards, where I talked about the abstract and the new method, the science, and then I got down to the meat, and at the very end, I talked about my audience.
Oh, yeah.
And I had, and then I was like, I could see the confused faces there. And then it was almost like I felt I had to then try to come up with situations for everybody. And it was like I was trying to throw fishing lines in the water to help all these people understand. When I could have just read the water in the first place.
Yeah, that's the way to put it. But you know what? I guess you learned a lot about that, because usually that's what happens when we realize, ooh, maybe it didn't go as planned. But from that, what did you change moving forward after that?
Well, I certainly have been digging in a lot more into the nuances of building a presentation and engaging, meeting your audience where they are and what's in it for them, right? Because
that's it.
I was excited about the idea, but it was really about, staying with your audience. I'm there to serve them, right? What their needs are. So it's starting with that and staying with that was the big thing.
And you know what? I think it's probably the element that many speakers forget about. So it's not only when we start, even sometimes experienced speakers forget about that it's always about the audience. It's always about their fears, their challenges, or whatever they're sitting in front of us for, because they are expecting something. But at least, like you said, yes, it was probably backwards, but you learned early on that, I have to put the audience at the top of my priorities to make sure everything will go right afterwards.
Well, and I don't always get it right still, but I'll recognize, you'll still recognize when, I didn't quite get that right this time. I see that again, and over practice, I realize I'm going to get better and better at that.
And it's true. It's just, and sometimes even if you practice, I realize no two audiences are the same. So something might work very well with a group we have, and then you try something very similar with another one, and all of a sudden it just doesn't fly. And you have to adjust. So, and I think listeners have to realize that's an ongoing process. I don't think there's ever one perfect way to do things. It depends on where and who is in front of us.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
And aside from, challenges we've had in the past, I'm sure you also have a great memory of taking the stage. Do you have one you want to share and why it was so nice for you?
Well, I can share a couple of related ones, just two short ones. Well, sure. There was one where I was worked in a group of companies, and they decided that they were going to do investor presentations to everyone who worked in these companies.
Okay.
So each person from each company would present, and I was to be the last person in these presentations. And we're in this venue, and they were going it was a long afternoon listening to these technical presentations. And the audience wasn't all technical either, the people that were there. And I could just see the energy sagging, right? And I thought, oh, am I going to give a technical talk?
The end of the day is a really tough spot.
So I looked at it and then I realized, okay, I'm talking about this project that's in the Yukon, in the Klondike area where the gold rush was. Here I am, a woman I was leading these projects. I thought, you know what? I just did a Toastmasters speech about women in the Klondike.
Ooh.
Enterprising women in the Klondike. So I kind of thought, do I remember enough about that? And I did. And so when it was my turn, I got up and I said, I'm going to do something a bit different. And I started off and I delivered this Women of the Klondike speech, and they loved it. They came to life, and it was all about enterprising women.
Nice.
And then at the end, I was able to tie together that, and now I am in the Klondike, and then I could go into the company's work. And the funny thing was, is my boss wasn't there, but everybody loved it, and it was fun, right? It was a fun way to end. And then, a few days later, my boss, who couldn't be there, he said, well, I went for lunch at that place where we were doing all the presentations, and the guy at the bar said, wow, there was this amazing speech at the presentation at the end. And
wow. So when people remember, that's when you nailed it, because that's the whole point, making sure people remember what you said and they get the chance to think about it way more. And I guess that audience at that time, they probably said, thank God, something different. We won't have that boring data-driven thing again.
I know, and it was more storytelling, and so that was kind of a fun one for sure. Yeah.
And you touch a good point, the storytelling part that sometimes these days we forget about. And even very technical speeches, if people can weave in an interesting story, that's when they will be able to be more memorable, because data is not memorable by itself.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but you know what? We're just wired for stories and visuals. So it is the way it is. We're just humans.
And that's an important thing because to think about. And the curious part of the mineral exploration industry is people out in these camps are in small groups and they tell stories all the time.
Oh, I guess so.
That environment. So I think there's an opportunity there for more story and data coming together for sure.
That's a good point. Very good point. And interestingly enough, especially in the industry you're in, I would be curious to see what would be your wardrobe tip you would share with people, because sometimes we have industries that are more probably women related, but I guess that you probably have more men in geology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I can't wear my work boots all for presentations.
I agree. That would look awkward.
Although my nieces tell me I do have more work boots in my closet than dress shoes. So, but that is my tip: is actually to wear comfortable shoes. And especially me, I do have some foot problems now, and that's important because if you're thrown off physically, it does, I think, impact how attentive you can be in the delivery and responding to the audience.
Oh yeah, we have to be comfortable to be able to deliver in a comfortable manner. You're so right about that. And finally, Janice, I would be tempted to ask, what would be one tip you would like to share that it will empower women to take the stage more confidently?
Well, I'd like to suggest one place where I started, and I started with Toastmasters.
Sure.
International public speaking organization. There's groups, all over, cities all over Canada, all over the world.
Yes.
And I'm really grateful to how they helped me advance in fact, just on Friday, my club for our Toastmasters celebrated their diamond anniversary, the 60th
wow.
year. Yeah, so a big milestone. When I reflected on that, I thought about, wow, diamonds, right? And isn't it funny how we all sort of start off as rough stones and a little bit of pressure forms, and then we get polished up by practice, and all our facets become shiny and along the way. Yeah.
Oh, that is a beautiful way to put it. I like what you just said, because you're right. And the fact, I can just picture it, putting the pressure on ourselves to be becoming more polished and having that little diamond shine through. What a nice way to end, Janice. I thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us.
Oh, my pleasure, and thank you so much. Lovely to chat with you today, Chantal.
It is. So we'll share with our listeners your links, how they can find out about you. And I encourage them to just follow the links and go find out more about what you do and who you are. You never know, they might connect with you.
Perfect. All right.
So thanks again.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed the show. Please tell us what you think by commenting, and even share with your own networks to inspire and empower others to do public speaking.